I'm for conciliation, and so I'm just offering my support spiritually or whatever I can do to help in this situation.
Yes, and I grew up in Akron. I went to Finley School on the north side, Jennings, and North High School. So this has been my whole life. I've been basically back here in ministry and the school, the community. I was one of those kids. I remember, and I'm so grateful for the education I had, and they didn't have these issues. One other thing with me, I was involved on a limited degree in 1989 when they had the strike. I met with all the people involved for fostering a spirit of reconciliation, that in doing that they could come together and come to a joint decision.
As all of you have basically said or intimated that kids should be at the center of this, it's always nice to have, teachers paid properly, because we know in this state and others they're not paid very well. Talk about how to impact on the young people, keep them learning throughout this. As you mentioned, Mr. Somerville, the epidemic, the pandemic set them back. Still on the catch-up.
Well, of course, when I was a kid, I would look for snow days, and I know after a couple snow days, I fell behind. So you can imagine if students had to go through the pandemic, and now they have to go through a strike, it's just not going to be very helpful to them as they try to move forward and educate themselves so they can better themselves. And let's be honest about it, the only way out in this society is through education. Without education, you're not going to be able to do the things that you need to do. And that's why this is so important, to make sure that this institution stays open, make sure that students are in class, learning every day, and making sure that the teachers are safe and the teachers are paid a wage that is commensurate with the work that they do.
If teachers were here now, if the Board of Education was here now, what would you be saying to them in terms of resolving this issue?
That they certainly want to get paid. I understand that. Anybody wants to be paid equitably. But at the same time, the children are the highest priority, and so it's probably going to have to be give and take on all sides.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and another aspect of this, I know they talk about if there's a strike, there'll be online at-home learning. And I think we've seen in the pandemic, that's not really helpful. So if we can take those steps, that's going to be very important. And again, helping people to be ready, not to say an us versus them attitude, which right away keeps people from coming together. We're all in this together for the sake of the kids, for the sake of the community of Akron. And how do we keep that mindset and that heart set and that soul sense of that we're meant to be in this all together?
I don't know that the city can bring any weight to bear on this outside of offering assistance, but is there any stick or carrot you could offer to move this process along?
Well, I don't know exactly what that stick would be, because I'd have brought it with me. but I'm sure that there are things that we will continue to do, working with the superintendent and supporting her. That's the main thing, to support the superintendent, what she's trying to do, and support the board. And try to bridge this gap between the union and the school system, because that seems to be where the problems are. And let's just be honest about it. We just cannot afford to have these kids on the street. So we're also prepared as a city, if we do go on strike, to making sure that the community centers are opened up, and opened up early so kids have a place to go. And we'll try to do some other activities to make sure we try to keep these kids busy if this happens. But let's just hope it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think what we're doing right here brings some additional pressure to bear, so that all parties know that the community is concerned about this, and that it's just not something that they're doing unto themselves, but we are all concerned and all involved.
Now, I've heard of a strike force. In effect, some teachers that would come in and teach if they do go out on strike. In effect, they have been called scabs. You're all familiar with those terms. I'm not calling them that. That's what I've heard. You're concerned about what kind of precedent that sets in the city of Akron, and the kind of pushback you're likely to get from the teachers.
Well, of course, we're going to hope that it doesn't get to that, where people have to cross the picket lines and bring in teachers, and we want to avoid that. So that's why we're here today, trying to avoid getting to that point. And I think we're doing everything possible to do that, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to ask the Catholic Church and Baptist Church and any other churches out there to pray to make sure that this comes to an end, because it needs to.
Do you guys believe that, and sorry if this has already been stated by Harry, do you guys believe that the Akron Public Schools will be able to handle the situation and continue learning moving forward if a strike takes place on Monday?
I think it's going to be very difficult for them to move forward, and that's why we want to try to avoid that, because it is going to be more difficult for the students. It's going to be more difficult for the families. You know, parents have jobs; they have to go to work, and now they have to find somebody to keep their children. I mean, it causes so many problems that we got to try to hopefully get this thing worked out.
On Monday, if there is a strike, there is a school board meeting set for 5:30. I just talked to the teachers union. They told me that they have a rally scheduled for 4:30 if there is a strike, and there's going to be a ton of people down here beforehand picketing and such. What message do you think that sends to the community and sends to the children here in Akron?
Bishop, you want to?
Well, I don't think it sends a very good message, but I think Mr. Somerville said something that was very, very powerful. We need to pray. We are watching the National Football League and with Damar Hamlin, and people have prayed, and look at what has happened. And so I'm calling the community not simply to picket, not simply to fight, but to pray about what we ought to do, what would be best for our community. So yet all of those things become more and more problematic, so we want to try to deal with them before we get to that point.
And I just want to add about that prayer. So often prayer can be, Lord, do something about those other people who see it differently than we do. Whereas I hope all of us say, no, we got to look in our own heart and soul. What are we doing? How and why are we doing it? And to get out of the kind of ego stuff that can get in the way of this and just about any way that we relate in the culture.
How do you gentlemen see this moving forward? The Akron Teachers Union wants to limit the violence and the assaults in the schools and wants more protections of their teachers, while the Akron Public Schools is continuing to let it go inside the schools.
Well, I believe that we have to have more. This thing is based on relationships. And if you don't have the good relationships, you don't have the bridge to walk across. This is what happens. We have to help that process so that we can begin to talk through this and begin to actually share ideas and begin to know what each other are feeling and thinking. I think that's part of the problem with any negotiations of this kind. We tend to get in our minds and our heads in one direction. And so we're hoping that we can help to add to that process.
And these are all good people, and we know they all have the best intentions for the children. We just need to just step up, get this resolved. We got 2 more days. I understand they're going to be meeting tomorrow and Sunday, and I hope they will continue those negotiations around the clock. And come Monday, let's have a deal.
I want to cast any dispersion on any particular aspect of this. But safety in the schools means that teachers are being fought, they're having to fight, they're having to discipline. What about the children? What can we do to help them understand how important it is not to act up or act out in school, but to learn in school, and that would help to abate the problem?
One of the things that I'm working on at a number of levels is trauma. Some of these children have been traumatized, and they're responding in a fight or flight kind of fashion. And so when these things start to happen, we begin to try to negotiate and talk. There's no learning or listening going on when people are traumatized. So we've got to help these young people begin to address the trauma, address the pain, address the grief that they've experienced, so that we can help them to move to a place where they can begin to listen and learn.
Sounds like we need to pull the whole village together here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because sometimes what happens is when we talk about the kids, we say they're traumatized. But we're not saying that teachers are traumatized. The community is traumatized, that we are having these kinds of interactions back and forth between each other, and we all need help.
Yeah. No, another point, just building on that whole notion of respect. Obviously, the children need to learn respect. And very important, and it does begin in the home, and that's a concern. And at the same time, in everybody coming together with the different forces, somehow to be respectful, and hopefully respectful to a point that one of the greatest respects can be, hey, you know what? We're going to come together, even if there's differences. We're going to work this out. We're going to get this done, and showing respect for one another, especially for the kids in the whole community.
Yeah, and I appreciate your question. You're asking excellent questions. As we watch Damar Hamlin, these things are connected. The commentators, almost no one knew how to talk about this, how to deal with it, how to interact with it, and just watch the news. There's one word they don't want to say: trauma. And trauma is what they're facing. What we're facing in the community is trauma, and we have to begin to teach people, help them to learn what trauma is, what it does to you, how it messes you up, so that you can't hear, and it makes it difficult to
learn. Yeah.
Being a part of this community, and other community members here in Akron, what would you tell the parents of these students in the Akron Public Schools as they have 48 hours to possibly get in place childcare and support for their children moving forward as they had to work on Monday if there is a strike?
It's back to prayer. I don't know what I would do if I was a parent. I probably couldn't go to work for a day or two till I found somebody to keep my kids. I don't know how you even answer that.
And obviously they heard some of this and dealt with some of this in the pandemic. We don't want to go back to that. Hopefully that won't happen here. But if we need to, they need to be thinking that mindset, okay, what positivity did they do? Because the thing about the pandemic, it affected all of us. So it wasn't like this group versus that group. Again, we're in this together with families and businesses and the work. So how, again, we can foster some of that spirit.
Yeah, and trauma is a distressing or a disturbing experience. So the parents are experiencing trauma right now, trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this, how they're going to interact with it. So we have to offer this help at many levels, not just at one level.
Yeah.
A lot of kids during the pandemic didn't go to school online. Just didn't want to do it. It was difficult. Parents didn't know how to make it happen because it was difficult. Most parents had not been in school and didn't learn the new ways of teaching or learning for decades. It's just one thing compounds the other thing that compounds the other thing. And in the interim, our kids are being hurt by this. I'm thinking there's got to be a better way.
There's no question that there has to be a better way to make sure that these kids get the education that they need. And the only way to do that is if they're in the classroom and people are teaching them and we're identifying people with trauma and we're identifying problems that they may be having. It's the only way to deal with it. There's no other way.
Another point I just make is that so often in all of this, understandably, we're problem-centered. We also need to be solution-centered, to be talking about what we talk about, and they need to be, but now, what are the solutions that every one of us in every aspect of the community can bring forward as we go forward?
I think another thing that needs to take place, and we're working on it, is that there have to be tribes of people that can talk to the different. We tend to think about it in terms of a global perspective, but we're talking about tribes. Certain people from certain sides of town, certain people from certain cultural realities. And if you don't have the people who can speak to them at that level, we're not going to be able to make that work. And so that's part of the problem. We have to gather a coalition of people that have a wide berth of interests, cultures, values, so that we can work together to get this solved.
You, sir, I know. If you could tell us who you are and if you have a comment on all this, we'd appreciate it.
My name
Step
is
a little bit so we can both.
My name is Lorenzo Glenn. I'm the pastor of the Macedonia Baptist Church in Akron. I'm looking at the issue of security becomes the issue with the teachers. Then we know right now we have to address that issue. A teacher should not, our education should not have to come to school and be concerned about which day they may get slapped on. That is unnerving in itself. And on the flip side, our children need to be in school. So I think we have a directive. I think we have right now somewhere to focus to make them feel more comfortable to eradicate where we are right now.
Any closing thoughts from you?
I'm just going to call for prayer. And while we are working, prayer is really important. I think the second I'm going to call for relationship. We have to have a bridge that's strong enough to bear the weight to cross and have these kind of conversations.
And again, prayer and conversation that helps us work through that us, them, you versus me, our tribe, your tribe, that how we have a conversion, if you will, we're all in this together. and especially for the sake of the kids.
Briefly, if you were to pray right now, what would you say?
I would say, Lord, help us to be able to relate to other people who I might not be of my tribe, for the good of Akron and our children.
Absolutely. To empathize and but where they are, there are cultural differences, and we have to come together and be able to relate to where everyone is.
And I would just add saying, God, our Creator, God, you made us all, you made us diverse, you see diversity and differences as a way to enrich one another, and we thank you for that. Help us to see it in your way, rather than see it as any kind of diversity cause for division, but really cause for, coming together with each that we can bring to make a community together better.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we depart, since we showed up a little late, can you guys say your name and
Sure.
what your title is?
Bishop Joey Johnson, pastor of the House of the Lord and leader of the Love and Justice Coalition.
Marco Somerville, Deputy Mayor, Senior Vice to the Mayor for the City of Akron.
Lorenzo Glenn, pastor of the Macedonia Baptist Church here in Akron, Ohio.
Father Norm Douglas, pastor at St. Vincent Catholic Church, also a number of years ago co-founded an organization called Heart to Heart Communications, bringing people together.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
thank you.
I went to the Board of Education.
Don't worry about it.
Take this mic back off. Does anybody speak Spanish?
No, I know you.
Does anybody speak Spanish? I'll have you undo that.